have questions yet. Are you on our Wi-Fi?
No. Oh, so I was trying. I'm gonna get off it. There we go.
I'm gonna cheat and use my phone. Technology Central.
Right.
If you are here, say hello. We got 25 people watching and 0 comments. There we go. Thanks, Grant.
There's
Okay.
people.
There's at least a people. We got 1 people.
We're doing like a simultaneous thing, guys. I've got 24 people. How much you got?
We have a blank screen.
27.
because Facebook is weird.
Hey, hello from Houston. What's up, Houston? I am
27.
just
Guys,
getting
we
started.
have to have more than Eli. so
33.
Should have posted it
watching.
to the Fit the Fight page and not the Republic page.
It's there,
There's
too.
a lot more people there.
31. What's
What's
up,
up, guys?
guys?
No questions. Just need some daily dose of sarcasm. Well, you came to the right
Yeah,
place.
you did. Good job, Jonna.
Right. Wolf team. Let's
So
get
they're
this closer so we
just
can.
happy to listen to you guys banter and make fun
Yeah.
of each other, and it's
All right.
solid.
There's a bottle of Macallan over there that
Yep.
I have the.
There might be mezcal
Burn
in the
the
back
bar.
too.
Uruguay. Uruguay? Did I say that right? Uruguay? Uruguay? It's not, you
That
don't
was
say
some
Uruguay.
Kentucky shit right
No,
there.
Uruguay is more appropriate than Uruguay. Uruguay is Kentucky. What's up, brother? Much love from Hawaii. Aloha. I got Hawaii, I got Brazil, I got Houston,
whatever.
and I'm collecting all of them. All right.
Uh-oh. All right, well, are
we'll
your
do-
people asking questions? Our
Not
people
yet.
just want to hear Ryan make fun of you.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what
Great.
your people are here for.
UK.
Our people.
Hope you guys are doing
Somebody
okay
posted
over
a
there,
question
guys.
earlier. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
find it.
Is BJJ effective in the street? Nope. Yeah. If the streets are matted and you're wearing gis, then absolutely it is. Everybody knows that.
And which
Okay.
streets are those?
Yeah.
All
Sesame
right, I have a
Street.
question.
We got questions. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is actually my question. I don't really care what
Great.
everybody else says. If
Let's
we're
close.
in lockdown and quarantined and
Mhm.
and stuff,
Yeah.
what are some jujitsu katas that I should be doing?
Jiu-Jitsu katas. That's good. Yeah. Everybody. That's what everybody's asking about. Solo drills, and I can't see myself in this one.
I know it was awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, drills. You guys have been doing a lot of feeds on drills, exercise, fitness related stuff. I put up a couple. I've got a couple drill videos that I've got on my channel or on YouTube. I don't know. I mean, you can do a lot of imitative things for jiu-jitsu. But I mean, I think that's just it. You're basically doing kata. I think that the most beneficial thing you're gonna do though is gonna be the core movements, shrimping and bridging and those kind of things. I don't think that there's anything magical that you're probably not already doing as far as warm-ups go whenever you're training, if you're training jiu-jitsu anyway.
Yeah. We're gonna start some online live classes tomorrow, Zoom. Giving that a try, see how that's gonna work, and the thing that we've been like is if you don't have a partner, it's gonna be tough. I think if you have a partner, then something interactive like Zoom is probably pretty close to as good as. I mean, if I can see you, you can see me. I can give you feedback.
Here to steal the show, guys.
Yeah. But the video just got so much better.
Yes, 100%.
So-
I think that's, pretty close to as good as it's going to get without being in the same room if you got a partner. I think if you got a partner, you can. It's not a whole lot different whether I'm physically 6 feet in front of you or whether you're projected onto a wall 6 feet from me. But I think without a partner, it's a little rough, a little tough. Even with like kickboxing, I mean, yeah, we can do combos and things like that, but again, it's like kata. I mean, it really is. It's
Yeah.
shadow boxing.
Shadow boxing, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's basically, I got that, John Danaher put out a solo drills video that got a lot of attraction behind it because it's Danaher. And that's basically kind of what he recommended. I mean, he showed just basic stuff. There's nothing fancy about it, nothing special, but it's just imitative of the movements that you're going to normally otherwise do. Now, I think when you deal with something like, if you're talking in the gi, then you have a few more options.
Yeah.
Because there's more stuff you can do with the gi, and you can work on grip training stuff. You can attach that gi to just about anything. You can put that on any kind of cable device you have for workout equipment. You can put it on kettlebells or weights or whatever, and you can work on grip training because I mentioned this on a live feed I did the other day with grips. So much of the time, grip strength is one component of it, and that's an extremely important component of it. But I think getting that initial grip attachment is an important component that is often overlooked, because just like reaching out and snatching a grip is a lot harder than you might think that it is. So doing that and just working on your reflexes and dexterity with that aspect of it is really important. Hold on a second. What is BJJ best mixed with from your experience?
Fit to fight.
Fit to fight, yeah.
Urban.
Yeah. So BJJ, I don't know, if you're talking about...
What is BJJ?
Man, I don't know. I don't even know what BJJ is anymore, because it's got an identity crisis these days. Most of the time when people say BJJ, I think they picture like IBJJF competition in the gi. And that's, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very limited factor. So, I mean, they picture ground fighting. That's essentially what you're picturing, sportive ground fighting. But BJJ, I mean, it came from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is the Gracie family Jiu-Jitsu, and that was kind of the evolution of it to what we know by today's standards. But I mean, it's submission grappling. So when you're talking about that, and if you want to like incorporate it into like a mixed martial arts setting, then you're going to mix in wrestling components. You're going to mix in boxing and kickboxing. You're going to mix in a lot of different stuff that all blends together in a nice hybrid thing. The main thing is just knowing how to switch different modes to the right range of the fight, right? I had something about cardio. You guys would know better about that than I would, maybe.
There's a BJJ person asking about cardio.
Yeah.
They're on the wrong feed. Tell them to jump over to our screen.
Yeah. So, recommendations to improve cardio.
For what?
Probably some kind of fighting context.
So,
probably
like,
grappling.
For me, and I don't want to get too in the weeds or nerdy or anything, but like anaerobic versus aerobic for, I think fighting, there's very little pacing in a fight, Now, if we're talking jiu-jitsu and we're doing some flow rolls and we're kind of just, going through motions and flowing, maybe if we're doing, 5-5s or something like that. But in a fight, I think it's short bursts, so more like Tabata interval kind of stuff, where it's high intensity for short periods of time and then even shorter rest work. I mean, outside of that, cardio is, I remember talking to Ross Animate a few years back, and if you've never seen any of Ross's stuff, you go to rossboxing.com. His conditioning work, strength work is phenomenal. And he said, you want a good workout and you want to improve your overall fitness, go outside, run as far as you can, as fast as you can. And then rest and then do it again. And then rest and then do it again. It's not sexy and it doesn't get YouTube views or whatever, but I mean, if the goal is just to increase my overall fitness level, I do what I can as hard and as fast as I can for as long as I can. And again, it's, you're not going to get big Instagram follows or anything like that doing that kind of work, but I need to be able to fight for as long as I have to fight, as hard as I can fight. I don't know what, if we're talking about, self-defense, it sounds awful, Grant, you're right. And Jenny, you're also right, Ross Animate is awesome. But it's, I don't get to say, okay, well, fight's gonna be 15 seconds. I don't know. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. If it's 5 minutes, it's gonna feel like a day and a half probably, And I think just in talking about fitness, conditioning, strength in general, I don't think you can be fit enough or strong enough or fast enough or any of those things. I don't think anybody's ever gotten in a fight and thought, you know, I was just in too good a shape. You know, I was just too strong, or I was just too fast, or what, you know, like that's never been a thing. So to me, like cardio, I don't know that there's a lot of correlation with cardio to fighting, for just overall health and well-being for sure. But man, cardio is not fun to train at all. I think there's a lot of emotional toughness that comes with training cardio. You know, we have a member here that will literally run like marathons on a treadmill. The emotional toughness that takes, or just the complete insanity that takes, is just it's beyond my ability to fathom. Like, I can't even begin. If I'm 3 minutes into a treadmill, I'm already thinking about 8 million other things that I want to be doing or could be doing or should be doing. So
that's the thing. I feel like too that's why functional training is a lot sexier, because it's functional to what you're doing. So I mean, if you're putting this in a fighting context, you're putting this in a kickboxing or a grappling context, then looking at the kind of drills and how you can modify those drills to be high intensity interval training segments of, you know, if I'm looking to do something that is going to be conditioning, and you know, because cardio can kind of take on different forms, kind of like Ryan's talking about. It's like, you know, like those, you're gonna need those in spikes and variables, because the pace of the fight, whatever that fight, you know, its complexion is, whether it's more of a self-defense or street fight context, or MMA, or you know, just a straight tournament style grappling, whatever. You're gonna need to be explosive when you need to be explosive, and you're gonna need to be able to like conserve your energy stores whenever you need to conserve them. You know, so it's like, never like.
yeah, I think cardio is more here. Yeah. Whereas fighting has those peaks and valleys you're talking about, you know, that I'm going all out for a few seconds, and then, you know, maybe I'm conserving or whatever. I don't know. Especially in like an MMA fight where I know I've got 5-minute rounds, so I can train for a 5-minute round.
Yeah. A lot of drills that are like functional drills for grappling, for jiu-jitsu, if gi and no gi, I like to look at passing, because passing can make, you know, guard passing can make a lot of extremely valuable drills, because you're gonna have to like have things in the proper place at the proper time, and it's something that you can freeze frame a segment of maybe 2.5, 3 moves and chain those together. And you're going to be able to freeze frame or snapshot those little moments that would happen in a match. And that's why drilling is so important. Just repetition is over here, and then this is like full on rolling over here. Drilling can be one of the most valuable things that I feel like you can do, because you can take those things with varied resistance in those little small moments, and you can just repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. In a live roll, you might hit something like once or twice in a 10-minute roll. Whereas, like, you know, in drilling, you can just go over and over and over again. And so then whenever you insert that into the live roll, then you see it happen, see it pop up like organically, and then you're ready to pounce on it because you drilled it so much. I missed
So is the drillers make killers line
perfect?
Is that a legit?
I guess. The most prepared I ever felt like for any kind of competition was when I drilled a lot more before it, because I've taken both approaches. And I mean, you get people that are, I mean, it depends on the person too, right? I mean, some people, they don't have to drill very much. They can.
Sorry, what did you say?
God. Yeah. If I say this again, I get to get whacked with it, I think. That's what, yeah. Just for punishment. So,
for taking people's lines.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't even think I've said it yet.
Pass or X-pass. So then I said something about guard passing, so people start asking about that. As far as passing, group them together like this. Knee cut passing, X passing or tornado passing, whatever, and then leg drag passing. And then long step and back step passing. I'm very loud.
Our external mic is down for some reason, so we will speak up. Thanks for that note.
Volume is a touch low.
All right, so guard passing, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah, something about guard passing. Yeah. That's in Spanish.
Sylvia.
Yes, Sylvia, help.
Yeah. Somebody.
Let's see. I had a couple questions back here. I love BJJ for resistance training for BJJ. Resistance training for BJJ. What's that like? So, what? Okay. Sorry, I have to look at my phone every once in a while. We were talking about, somebody was asking about resistance training for BJJ or for Jiu-Jitsu kind of training. Or let's just say grappling. Can we just say grappling instead of BJJ?
What about catch wrestling? Can we say
Catch wrestling. Please let's not. I want to try to keep that off of my feed anyway. Yeah.
Johnny Buck, you out there?
Yeah. Man, he reposted something about catch wrestling. It's actually because Jitsu put it out, and then he reposted it and just got flamed by people, by catch wrestlers, and he's like a catch wrestler. Man, the guys are so sensitive. It's crazy.
It really is mad.
You share your insights on mindset for self-defense. Mindset for self-defense. What's your mindset need to be for self-defense, Ryan Hoover? Oh, yeah. He brought props.
I should give a shout out. This was sent to me as a gift. You can follow them on Instagram. They make a lot of cool things. It's Solago Design, Solago Design. You can find them on Instagram. But anyway, mindset for self-defense. You know, we make a distinction here between self-defense and self-protection. So self-protection for us is more kind of preemptive. You know, I'm controlling as many variables on the front end as possible. That could be anything from making sure I remember where I park my car, parking my car in a well-lit area, those kinds of things, to I'm walking down the street and I see something on the sidewalk that maybe looks a little sketchy, so I cross the road and hit the other side. So being a bit more preemptive, whereas self-defense for us is I'm being choked, I'm being tackled, I'm being punched, I'm being stabbed, whatever. So not to get into semantics, but I think it's a good distinction to make. Self-defense, I'm already dealing with a problem. I'm already in the encounter. And, you know, our general mindset there is, well, you have to be able to fight. And if I'm not committed to fighting, if I'm not committed to that action, then I'm probably not going to come out on top. I'm probably not going to prevail. I think sometimes maybe mindset's a little bit overdone in our industry. You know, I see people and hear people say, well, mindset's everything. Well, no. Being 6'2", 245 is a lot. You know, like that guy's mindset, you know, it could be he's the biggest teddy bear in the world, but he's still 6'2", 245. So, and I could have the most killer mindset on the planet, and he's still 6'2", 245. So I think mindset goes a long way, and it'll help me to understand context. I think mindset is important in terms of me knowing what my assets and liabilities are, knowing what my limitations might be, knowing that I shouldn't allow my ego to put me in a situation I shouldn't be in and then keep me in that situation.
Well, and there's another component of mindset too, because I think that's such a generic phrase. It's a good soundbite. Mindset is everything. I'll make a good T-shirt. But I think that in addition to that, with mindset too, it makes me think of when you see somebody get rocked in a fight, and then instinctively just latch onto somebody in a clinch, or instinctively go after a takedown when they're like semi-conscious. You know, I mean, like who was it? Kevin. Who was it last UFC? The one they did in London with no fans in the arena.
Yeah, I actually missed that one.
Yeah, and well, anyway, like Kevin Lee, he got like basically choked out. He tapped late, and he was like semi-conscious, and went after the referee whenever he started to come to again.
I did see that.
But I mean, that's sort of a mindset thing, even though it's kind of an unconscious, like, or it's deep subconscious kind of thing, because you're trained to that high of a level. So yeah, there's a lot of components to what goes into mindset, you know. I saw something interesting. I'm going to start. Question about Khabib Nurmagomedov submissions. What do I think about his submissions?
Is that when he pins a dude down and just
yeah, like
turns
pins
it
their
into
arm
an
behind
Ole
their back
spot on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like bombs to the face are submissions. I mean, you're beating somebody into submission. That's a submission, right?
Yeah.
I like to say that because it's another good soundbite is that everything on the ground is position, transition, or submission. Right. So even if it's not like an arm bar or a choke, it can be submissions if you're grounding and pounding somebody, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely playing the position game, right? Like, I mean, he gets good top side and good control, and especially when he can immobilize legs and hips and whatnot. And,
Yeah, his wrestling's ridiculous, man. I was watching some video of him going with, it was like this top ranked like state champion wrestler. Like it was a high school wrestler, but I mean still, it's a ridiculously high level wrestler. And so I was like, this is going to be interesting just to see like from a very technical standpoint, and it was. There's some very technical transitions and exchanges. That was really cool to watch.
Burton, Fry, what got Ryan involved?
Involved in the martial arts, defensive tactics. How did you develop your teaching style and philosophy? Discussing realism and motion, self-defense.
What got me involved? I don't know. I guess it was like a lot of people, something I always wanted to do. You know, I was into Bruce Lee movies and whatever, but I didn't really start until later in life. It wasn't like a lot of folks in the industry where they started as a kid. I didn't have that. It wasn't something that was available or opportune or whatever. But as somebody that's always been on the smaller side of things, you know, I learned early on that I needed to be able to fight and talk and run fast, and I developed a bit of all of those. I was better at some than others. And so once I got the opportunity to kind of train, I did some traditional martial arts like a lot of folks do, and I did Jiu-Jitsu. Actually, I've trained in Jiu-Jitsu longer than I've trained in anything else. I don't say that often, but I've trained in Jiu-Jitsu over 20 years now. Not well. I'm not good at it. I do 3 things really well, and it works for 95% of the population, and I'm good with that. So, but
I do like 500 things not very well.
But it looks good.
Yeah, hey, that's all that matters, I guess.
So anyway, I at some point I decided that what I was doing didn't look like the fights that I had been in and the fights that I had seen. So I went looking for other things, and that kind of took me to Krav Maga for a while. And then I found limitations in the way that Krav Maga was trained and presented, and that just kind of drove me to other things. And in terms of my teaching philosophy, I give a lot of credit for my teaching philosophy to Bobby Tabata. And I didn't actually know it until much later in life. I didn't know how much I learned about how to teach from Bobby until I was away from Bobby for 5 or 6 years. And when I went back and started training with Bobby a little bit, being around Bobby, watching Bobby teach again, I had this kind of awakening that I was like, wow, I had no idea that he had impacted me in that way. So I'm not comparing myself to Bobby. Bobby's a tremendous instructor, but I learned a lot from Bobby about how to, not only how to teach, but how to create a system, how to create a pedagogy that worked for a lot of people, getting them from kind of point A to point B in a relatively short amount of time.
There was a question over here I wanted to address because I did a little live feed on Instagram the other day because it was something I've had a lot of conversations with people. Ryan is a facility owner, multiple facility owner, and you guys have affiliations and brick and mortar things to consider. I don't. I teach out of one, obviously, but I don't own the place. And so the thing that I was addressing the other day, and this was a question the other over here, was what should academy, gym, facility owners, what am I trying to say here? The thing, my premise was this: keep paying your tuition even if the place is closed down. And obviously not everybody can do that. But this was two parts. One is do what you can, because this is the place that you train. This is a place that's impacted your life huge, and you want it to be open whenever this whole thing is blown over. Everybody has to close down now. We can't have normal classes. We can't have normal training sessions. And so while that's happening, try to keep things going. And this is, I feel like I can say this because even though I teach out of a place, I don't own the place. And so this is not me saying, hey guys, pay your tuition to my gym, even though I have to close down my door or close my doors to you for this time being. But on the flip side of it, it's like gym owners don't just need to like roll up the sidewalks and be like, oh well, we'll just give us a call whenever you're open. If you watch these guys, what they've been doing for the past, like since this has been going on, it's like live feeds every day. It's like all these different, they're offering all these different incentives and all this different information as much as they can put out there so that they can keep their students involved, they can keep people going. They're giving you stuff to do at home. And I think everybody's pitching in and trying to do that right now. And I don't feel like most people who are doing that are doing it with the, hey, we want you to keep paying us, so we're gonna do this for you. I feel like it's more like, we know how stir crazy we get. We know how insane we go whenever we can't train like we're accustomed to. If I can't get my regular training sessions in, if I can't get my regular like drilling time, my regular class time, if I can't teach for a while, I start going a little crazy in my head. So that's why I've been trying to put out drill videos. I've been trying to do some live feeds. These guys have been doing a whole lot of stuff with Fit to Fight. So and that's why we're doing this right now, honestly, is so that we get more information out there, get you guys still involved, so you still feel like even though you're kind of trapped up inside your house right now, we're still having this kind of dialogue and this conversation to be able to keep the wheels turning and keep us as involved as possible. You guys have to consider this from a different perspective than I do, so I don't know if you guys have any other kind of thoughts on it while I pet this beautiful dog.
I would mirror a lot of what Eli said. I think uncertainty is scary to people, and it's scary to us. Like we don't know, we have no idea. We're doing the best we can to get out as much information as we can. We've done things like Eli said, we've done live feeds every day. We've put out workouts via text information every day. We've done multiple skill building videos every day. Starting tomorrow, we're going to go live with interactive classes. We opened up our centers to allow people to come borrow gear. Like if you wanted to come get a pair of focus meds, if you wanted to come get a kick shield, if you wanted to come get tire pads or tombstone pads or whatever, we opened that up for people to come borrow those things. So while we're not able to operate, hopefully people can join us at home and get some work in. I do think that if you own a training center, if you are this is how you make your living, this is how you make your livelihood, then you should be putting in the effort to try to keep people engaged and try to keep people busy. And we talk about fitness all the time, but there's a huge part of emotional and I think mental fitness that goes along with doing what we do and giving people just some sense of normalcy too. Like I'm going nuts not being able to teach every day. Like it's super weird and I don't like it. And we've gotten messages from lots of people, lots of support, but also people that are like, man, I don't this is crazy. I really miss being at the gym. I really miss being, in class, whatever. So I think anything that we can do as center owners and as instructors to keep people engaged and to give people that sense of normalcy is important. Because it's like you said, it's not enough just to say, well, just keep paying your bills and we'll be back soon. Well, we didn't leave. Like we're still here. We've been front and center and out as much as possible, I think. And starting tomorrow, that would be even more. But I also understand, look, if you don't have a job and you can't pay the tuition, then you can't pay the tuition. You can't expect people to keep you going if they can't keep going. So.
Yeah, and at times like this too, though, you really have to have kind of a gut check about your priorities as well. When because this is the other thing, anybody who's been in this kind of like industry for a long time has seen people that if they're paying tuition or they're paying for private lessons or group classes or whatever, and you have conversations with people saying, man, I really want to do that. I really want to train. I really want to do this kind of thing or that kind of thing if I could just afford it. And in some cases, it's legitimate. People can't. A lot of times it's not, though. A lot of times it's like this same person who's saying, I can't afford to do this thing, is the same person going out and spending hundreds of dollars a month on things that are very bad for the person. You know, if they supplanted this one thing for that one thing financially, then they could afford to do this. So, and you know, so I'm not saying that applies to everybody. Obviously, it doesn't. But it is something to really think about. Have a gut check with yourself and think about it. I've seen some really amazing things come from this time period. We were looking on a website for a local coffee place, and their customers, their regulars, have been donating through like virtual tips. Like they have to be closed down. They're not even coming to this place, and they've gotten thousands of dollars in tips because they know that everybody is kind of having a hard time right now with this. So I mean, you know, the sense of generosity and the sense of kind of like charity and everything at this in times like this is really good to see, even though it's an unfortunate thing that it has to be like this anyway. So let's try to get some martial arts related stuff back here. I think drilling on a, is there another one over here? Drilling on a dummy at home helpful or detrimental? I worry it'll reinforce bad habits and there's no coach there to correct. That's a good point. It can. If you're gonna drill something like static, if you're gonna use like a grappling dummy, just like if you're gonna hit a heavy bag or if you're gonna work any kind of like solo, any kind of conditioning, anything, do the stuff that you have good technical form, that you know you have good technical form for, so you're drilling and reinforcing good behaviors, I would say. Any advice on how to like avoid drilling some kind of bad habits?
I think maybe if you video yourself, like if you're not going to have the opportunity to be coached for some period of time, I think a lot of times, like I do it, you know, especially if I'm fatigued, if I'm tired, my hands may start to drop, or, you know, I may get lazy hips or whatever. So if you video yourself, you can go back and watch it and see those things to kind of self-correct a little bit. Obviously, it's not the same as having somebody with more experience watching you, but everybody has sat off to the sidelines and watched somebody roll or watched somebody hit a heavy bag and been able to pick up on the way things are supposed to look.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to do some solo drilling, and if you don't have other outlets right now, you should be figuring out ways to do solo drilling. I mean, that's just the way it is. You should get stronger. I don't care if you don't have weights or you don't have a gym that you can go to or whatever. You can do body weight exercises all day, every day, like and get strong doing it.
Yeah, look at dudes in prison, and there's obviously, you know, not everybody's in shape, but you see some jacked guys walking around prison. Is not because they have the most state-of-the-art facilities to work out in. They're figuring it out. True.
So I think if you video yourself and go back and watch that, you know, you'll probably pick up on some things that you don't pick up on in the moment, as a way to help.
It's the best time in history to have like what we have. I mean, everybody has a camera on their phone that films in high definition for the most part. And so, I mean, if you're concerned about, you know, I don't know if I'm drilling this bad behavior, I don't know if I'm messing this technically up, look at a video of somebody that you know has really good form and has really good, you know, technique, and then video yourself next to it and compare yourself, you know. Or if you have communication with your coach, then, no, I don't speak Russian, I'm sorry. I'm down to learn though. But you know, compare them back and forth, or if you have good open communication with a coach or with coaches, then, you know, see if you can hit them up and say, hey, am I screwing this drill up before I do it 1,000 more times, you know? What do I think of Krav Maga? That's a perfect question for me. Surely that wasn't for Ryan. I don't know. He might have a worse opinion of it than I do, though.
I've only answered that question about 7 million times.
Yeah. What do I think of Krav Maga? Here's what I think. Krav Maga at its worst is bad Cliff's Notes of MMA. And then at its best, and this is from what I've seen. I've got very little exposure, so my opinion doesn't mean anything as far as Krav Maga goes. But there's some fantastic things that I've seen from very reputable sources of Krav Maga that I think are amazing, especially as again though, like with weapons defense and stuff. You see some Krav Maga instructors that are like I've seen some very realistic, very good stuff, and I've seen some other stuff that I'm like, oh, that's that's scary, that's awful. I think though, like most people that I know, I'll say it this way, most people I know that started with Krav, that the longer they're in it, it starts looking more like MMA training. They start to flesh out, they start out with like a smattering. It's like, we're gonna take this little segment, this little segment, this little segment. And it's like the longer you're in it though, you know, it's like anybody else that starts out cross training. You start out cross training as a smattering of all these different arts. And if you stay with it long enough, you're gonna start to really flesh out those individual areas. And yeah, so, let's see, I don't speak that either.
There's a lot of self-defense programs out there, in my opinion, build a lot of response on being overly aggressive. If you get, I get you need to take over the initiative, but I'm talking about plain violence that some programs show. How do you guys feel about that from a legal perspective?
So this is something that I think we harp on a pretty good bit in terms of like the whole there are no rules in a street fight kind of mindset and mentality.
Hey, I'd rather be judged by 12.
Twist 12 than
Six,
carried by
yeah.
I thought having Amber out here was bad.
He's
No, it's ridiculous. Like there are so many rules. It's not even funny. Like again, that good T-shirts, good sound bites, you know, tough guy language, whatever. I think you can understand the rules, understand the law, and still be able to defend yourself adequately. And so these programs that rely heavily on just being overly aggressive, I'm not saying it won't work. It might, but it'll probably end up getting you in big time trouble, you know.
Well, you hit on something earlier about preemption.
Yeah.
You know, so the difference, you were discussing the difference between self-defense and self-protection.
Yeah.
And some of the training mindset differences between that being preemption versus like late worst case scenario. And, you know, and so to tie that in with like the Krav Maga thing earlier, I think that, you know, one of the biggest faults on either side of the equation is for someone to train something that deals with like the worst of the worst case scenarios. That's like, you're so late that it's unrealistic for you to even think about getting out of that situation. Like your hands are bound, you're on your belly, and there's a gun to the back of your head, and now escape so you can get your 4th degree black belt. So, or the thing is like, well, I'm just not gonna let the fight get to this range, you know? So both of those are flawed methodologies. And you know, that doesn't discount the need for learning preemptive things. The preemptive is better than worst case. If you can end it quickly, if you can avoid the situation altogether, that's great. And also having an answer though for if you get into very deep waters, so that you don't just have to completely give up. But things can be taken to the extreme on either side of the equation, right? And so I think that's the thing that people need to be honest with themselves about whenever they are training any kind of what they consider self-defense or self-protection. And a lot of times people aren't honest about it because the cool techniques, it might be cool to learn, it would be cool to learn a disarm. Like for if I've got my hands zip tied behind my back and I've got a bag over my head and I'm in the trunk of a car with a gun to my head.
I can show you that later.
Sweet. Stay tuned.
not the escape, just put you
Okay. I did see a really cool video the other day where the guy kicked someone and then threw him into the back of his own hatchback.
Yeah,
And that was where the technique ended.
I may have seen that same video.
I want to see the continuation because I want to see if
Because the guy drives off with his car.
Yeah, you did. It's because it was. I mean, if it were a trunk, it was still a ridiculous video. But like, if it were somebody's, if it was his trunk and he closed it, okay. But it was a hatchback, and the guy wasn't unconscious. I mean, he got kicked in the leg or something, and then he, threw him. I don't know.
Yep, it was pretty fantastic.
I'll send you guys a link if you want to see it. How is Ferg's wrestling? I'm guessing you're talking about Tony Ferguson. His wrestling is ridiculous. It's off the charts. Like Tony Ferguson, like that's the thing that people are talking about. Well, you know, what's Tony gonna do with Khabib's wrestling? It's like, man, Tony, like is a like world class wrestler. He's such an unorthodox fighter that people look at him for his odd unorthodox striking, and he throws on these Darce chokes from like nowhere, and he plays rubber guard and all this crazy stuff. But man, his wrestling could very well be on par with Khabib's. You know, that's why that's gonna. If that Dana White is sweating so much right now trying to make that fight happen, man.
Yeah, because nobody's gonna have anything else to do.
Oh man.
So if he can get that thing on.
Oh my God, that's gonna easily.
Even if it's just Khabib and Tony at the performance center all by themselves, you know, I think that fight's gonna happen. And I agree. I've struggled to understand why people sleep on Ferguson's wrestling. I don't get it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think that's just it though, because it's like such a weird. He's got such a weird style, and he doesn't look like an orthodox kind of wrestler. Who do I think is going to win that fight? I think Tony Ferguson's going to win that fight.
I'll let you handle that one.
Oh goodness. I'm going to read this before I read it out loud. Okay. We can try to answer this.
I think it's a legit question.
Yeah, for self-defense, what should you say to children after applying a submission? Should they talk their way out or no? And for adults, I know it depends, but go ahead. But what can you do and in which context? Okay, so my feelings about this have changed personally over the years. When I'm teaching kids submissions, I teach kids a lot of things, and I equate it like this. I try to explain to them like this. I hope they understand, but you know, they're kids. And I try to get their parents on board too, because if I'm sitting there showing a little Timmy that's like 7 years old how to choke out somebody in class, then I want to try to contextualize the hell out of that to make sure that, you know, everything's okay. It's a bit like a driver's license, you know? Like if you're going to get your permit or your license and that's the first day you've ever driven a car, you're probably not going to do so well. So I think of it kind of like that. I want to front load this stuff. I don't let kids in my classes under 14, with exception, let's say under 12, do foot locks. I don't like to show the younger kids, like under like 7 or 8, typically don't like to show them chokes, just because it's easier than trying to contextualize it. But whenever I do start showing things like that, I frame them in a sportive capacity, and then we have the discussion about like self-defense and things like that later. But the more potentially dangerous something is, then like the more context you have to put with it, and the more discussion you have to have on terms that they understand. How do you guys feel about that? I don't know what you guys do exactly with your classes. Same.
You know, and I think the way material is presented, it is important, you know, to keep hammering home context. But the truth is, like, a lot of times I think adults struggle with when it's okay to do certain things.
Oh, for sure.
So asking a 10-year-old to be able to make that determination is pretty tough, you know. But we have to make the understanding, like, I don't expect 10-year-olds to be able to defend themselves against adults. No. You know, so if we're talking about a 10-year-old versus another 10-year-old, or maybe a couple of 10-year-olds or whatever, I personally have no issues teaching them chokes, because if we talk in terms of just the most humane way to take care of a fight, like I'm not going to leave them mangled, and I'm not going to break their elbow, their shoulder, or whatever. It looks horrible, you know, to people that don't understand it. You choke somebody out and they start convulsing or spitting up or whatever. But if the alternative is either I lie to them and I teach them, you know, Aikido, and I already know what your highest level, blah, blah, whatever.
It is. It's the highest level of martial arts.
Or I teach them kickboxing. Well, that's not going to be pretty, you know. Like, and I'm not saying I don't teach them kickboxing. I do, but if the alternative is jab, cross, hook to the face, and then kick them in the ribs, that's that's going to be ugly, you know, versus if I teach somebody to take their back, choke them out, leave them, you know, go get help, again, with the understanding that they're kids,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Well, okay, so you have to also take in consideration when are kids going to most likely get into fights? When are they going to most likely need some form of self-defense? And it's going to be, one, they're going to be at school, right? That's overwhelmingly, they're going to get into a fight at school. So then what's going to happen? How do most fights end in schools? Overwhelmingly, they get separated.
Yeah.
Like people intervening, adults particularly, like intervening, that's how most fights end in schools. Even if they're outside, like on a playground or whatever, depending on the age of the kids. Now, what's the second time? It's what if they get grabbed in the store or something, some adult grabs a hold of them? Well, you know, they need the best measures they can to try to get free of that adult, but that's about the extent of it. Like Ryan was saying, you know, we're not gonna, I watch, like, so McDojo Life always puts up videos of like showing these little kids getting their second degree black belt and they're like 9 years old and doing these things, and these hyper reactive adults responding to their kicks and punches as if like that's gonna do something. There's not gonna be an 8-year-old like Ernie Reyes Jr., like Surf Ninja style, like punching and kicking a full grown man who's trying to grab and take them away. Now, there are things they can do to get themselves free, for sure, like leverage-based techniques that could potentially get them free. But, you know, so the context is built in a lot of these cases. What's your opinion on schools? Charging for patches, $50 a set, mandatory to wear, $50 belt test, freeze membership during COVID-19, closed down, keep paying out of loyalty. Thanks. I think it's several parts to that question. Well, I have heard of schools that, again, this is why I'm glad I don't own my own brick and mortar facility, so take this with a grain of salt, of schools that were saying, you know, you can freeze your account and we'll start you back up when this passes, okay? And, you know, that's a great option for certain people. You know, you can continue paying and we'll offer you these incentives, you know, or continue paying like a reduced rate during this thing, and we'll offer these incentives. Or other ones that have said like, okay, well, if you cancel your account, then, you know, you can start back up, but you're gonna have to pay all the startup fees if there are startup fees associated with that. It's all the school owner's prerogative. You know, that's all their prerogative. You gotta take that up with them. Ethically, I'm not gonna touch any of that personally. I mean,
my personal opinion is with full disclosure that I'm obviously completely biased. I think if you can afford to, continuing to pay, if it's a month or two, and if it's going to put you out in any way, talk to your center owner and say, well, what if we freeze time versus payments? So in other words, maybe you're not going to get April or May or whatever, but that can get tacked on to the end of your term or whatever. That way, because these center owners, they're still going to have to pay rent. They're still going to have to pay utilities. They're still going to have to pay insurance. They're still going to have to pay all these things. Staff, I'm working right now to figure out how to keep staff. You know, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's not, obviously it's not just this industry. I mean, in our area, restaurants are shut down. You know, there's a lot of industry that's going to be affected. So there's a down the line trickle effect that, you know, at some point everybody's going to have to make decisions that make the most sense for themselves. But I do think, you know, if the $100 a month or the $70 or $120 or whatever that you're paying a month is not going to hugely affect you, and you believe that your center owner is really doing the best that they can to keep you involved and engaged, that they didn't just, you know, throw up a Facebook post and be like, okay, see you whenever we're cut loose again.
Yeah.
Then you know, I think it's a good thing to try to keep those folks up and running and moving. Speaking of watching video, what are some fights, matches to watch and learn from?
Man, as far as fights, it depends on like the what are you talking about kickboxing? You talking about MMA? You talking about like straight like submission grappling? All that?
Sakuraba versus Gracie's.
Yeah. Man, yeah. If you,
I don't
if
think
you-
everyone heard that.
I think
Something about Sakuraba versus the Gracies.
yeah. But a lot of those old fights, as far as like the early UFCs and early Pride and early Vale Tudo and those things, I think that I want to make it mandatory at where I train for it. You have to watch the Gracies in action, old VHS tapes. Those and a lot of those old challenge matches, and then parlaying those into the UFC and into the Pride days, because there was really watching the journey of what people thought worked in fights from martial arts to what actually did work, and then people throwing out too much of the baby with the bathwater, and then having to relearn, well, this will actually work too. That I would take an evolutionary stance on watching a lot of those old videos.
And I said that jokingly, but I mean, watch Hoist versus Saku. You talk about two dudes going at it for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
An hour and a half fight.
Yep.
Come on, man.
That was nuts. Yeah.
Nobody lost that fight. Like, come
No.
on, let's be real.
Yeah.
So I think, again, depends on, because we can say, I mean, fights, that's a pretty generic kind of term, but I personally love Pride, Pancrase. Watching those guys, it's just incredible to me, and to see the evolution. Some of those guys, I think, you drop them in today's world would still probably do okay in their prime.
Yeah, I think a prime Boss Rutan dropped into I guess he'd be light heavyweight or heavyweight. Today's UFC, I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like he'd be all right.
Yeah. Saku.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Sag's still taking fights. And
Yeah. I'd rather that not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's, do you feel? Let's see. This is the question. Oh goodness. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm happy to address that.
I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So the question was, are there plans to release more DVDs outside of a former association on the kind of bladed catch wrestler?
The edge weapon wrestler. Yeah. So the bladed grappler thing was that was a project that there's a couple of DVDs out on that, and I'm really proud of those. Like it was a project, and it was filmed with what was Funker Martial Arts, and then eventually Aperture, which we were both members of that group, and we did a lot of things during that time that we're proud of as far as material that we turned out, and because of the best euphemism we can use is creative differences, like that all kind of fractured a little bit, and we all decided to pursue our own endeavors and all that. The question was, are there any more plans to do any videos along the same lines of that kind of thing, particularly the bladed grappler stuff? No, not from that aspect of it, but I mean that's still a top. I mean, as far as the information goes, I mean the stuff that we were filming back then, we're still pursuing as far as we teach. We do seminars on the topic, we teach classes, we teach courses on those topics, and we still produce like video content. So, I mean, whether it's DVD or digital download or digital seminar or course, whatever kind of content, will produce things along the subject matter line. It won't look exactly the same way, because it's just a different group now. What do you want to add to that, though, Ryan? What do you think?
I mean, when it comes to the actual content there, I mean, there's only so many ways somebody can try to stab you with a knife, and there's only so many positions you can end up in, and I think you and Jared just really covered, I mean, kind of. There's only without going to extremes like we talked about earlier, where we're being held hostage with a bag over our head and a knife to our neck and one arm behind our back. I mean, I think, not that there's not more that could be covered and maybe approached in a little bit different way, but.
Well, here's something. This is where I had a problem. One of the main places I had a problem. is that when we're talking about knife in a grappling context, which first of all, like every knife defense is in a grappling context because that's the range it has to happen in, right? Unless you're defending against somebody throwing you a knife across the room, but like
But isn't grappling with somebody with a knife suicide?
Yeah, it is. It's basically in a street fight. So I said whenever I was approached with the subject of okay, what about knife in a ground grappling context? I was like, okay, I'm happy to talk about that subject because there are certain positional considerations, there are technical things that we can explore on how to best defend that we possibly could in that kind of a context. What if you're on the ground, you're wrestling, and somebody pulls a knife out in the fray or whatever? And then there as a continuation of it, whether it was just, are you just defending yourself, or are you having to stay in this and subdue somebody and control this person even further? The thing I refused to discuss is offensive use of a knife in a ground grappling context, because unless this is you are a police officer or someone else like that's carrying a gun, and that gun is compromised somehow, and you're talking about weapon retention, and you're talking about using a knife as like a backup or something, the context has to be so specified for that not to be just straight murder, then I just wasn't comfortable discussing that. So that's where I didn't want to talk about it. So if there is a continuation of that project and it does turn into something like how to offensively use a knife in a ground grappling context, I'm not part of it. So I'm just putting that out there. So,
And I mean, the reality is, like, for me, whether it's empty hand or whether there's a knife or a gun or whatever, it's more about being in a position to do those things. Like, if you have good jiu-jitsu and you have a knife on you, you don't need somebody to teach you how to do, you don't need, it's like if you can box. If you can box and you have a knife in your hand, you don't need a new set of skills. You don't need a DVD on how to do that. You want to talk about mindset, that's more mindset. That if you're willing to take a piece of steel and do that, like, you don't need somebody to teach you.
But
what
people want though? What people want though is, well, what if you slash here and then their reaction off of that is to react this way, and then that opens up this new target where you can stab them. Yes. And then they respond by curling this direction, so now their femoral artery is open, and it's like, man, like it's absurd. It gets crazy and psychotic a little bit after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to, I don't know what you're wanting to like look at that. I've seen there's like, I don't want to get too specific. It's so tempting. I keep forgetting that this isn't just like a conversation.
Ryan, are you coming out with any new knife designs? Also, the former company / affiliation can go suck it. Stay safe, healthy, safe, Eli and Ryan.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll take on all that. All right. So new knife designs. So not new, not yet. I have some prototypes, yes. But actually, what happened was, First Edge kind of dissolved. And that's a long story that's neither here nor there. But basically, we have partnered up with somebody in the industry that we know pretty well and has a long background in the tactical world. And we've taken over the manufacturing of those blades and the trainers and the sheaths and everything. And so those will be reintroduced hopefully in the next couple of months. We've hit some snags because of this whole pandemic thing in terms of being able to turn things around. But that's something that we're taking on in-house. We'll be producing and distributing them on our own soon, hopefully. Who knows how long this thing is going to drag on, but that's where we are with that.
If you guys like over here, like if you don't know what Ryan's talking about as far as the knives go, he has a design called the HR, and it's a really cool knife. Oh, do you guys have one sitting around here somewhere?
Trainer.
I'll show you guys one.
About 1,000.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in knife stuff, then Ryan's got really cool knife designs. There's three models, right? There's HR 1, 2, and 3.
Just 1 and 2, right?
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. So, but yeah, I'll show you kind of what they look like. Is that trainer or is this a?
Trainer.
Okay,
You won't hurt
so this,
yourself.
yeah, this is the trainer version of it here, but it looks, the shape and everything is exactly like.
That's why we didn't give him a line. That's why he got the trainer.
This is how it looks though, guys. So look, it's flat. So the cool thing about it is like you can still kind of palm things with it. That's what I liked about it. And yeah, it comes with the sheath like knives do. So that's the extent of my knowledge about knives. So,
If you want to see the live thing, I'll show that later.
Yeah. I have to wear gloves or something.
So anyway, yeah, former company affiliation. Look, things happen. I mean, it's business, it's personal relationships. It's I don't regret it because if that hadn't happened, then Eli and I wouldn't be sitting here doing this right now. So a lot of good came out of that affiliation. But at the end of the day, they chose to go in a direction that I don't think either one of us were comfortable in, from a business standpoint, from a personal standpoint, just from a presentation standpoint, all of it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
There are a few like repeat questions. We talked about Tony and Khabib already. I think Tony's going to win that fight. You can go back and like kind of listen to more of our opinion back in the video after we post it. And the other one, somebody just asked a very similar question again about, as a coach, how do we feel about kids using things that we teach to protect or defend themselves? We talked about that to a degree as well. So you can kind of go back and listen to that so we can kind of address some other questions. But those are great questions, though, guys. So I appreciate you guys asking everything you're asking. Spending $100 on toilet paper. Right. Oh, that must be with like the school owner tuition things.
Yeah.
That's just like a statement. Like, okay.
Since many
That was
classes
a while
are
ago.
hang on, freeze. Since many classes are moving to online format, are you offering online-only memberships? So I can just speak for us. We do start going online tomorrow. We have a ton of content out there for free, and then some to purchase as well through our ThinkIfic site. And then tomorrow we start with Zoom online classes. We will be offering those outside of regular memberships as well. Though right now our focus is on our current members, getting them the information that they need and they expect from us. So while that is something that we'll offer, we've spent most of our time kind of focusing on members inside of our centers. So the answer is yes, but it hasn't been our driver.
Somebody asked if we're still training. Like,
Yeah. I am.
I don't really. Usually what I do, I just watch like some YouTube videos and then I rip those off, repurpose them, put them on my channel. I don't really actually train
I mean,
guys.
but that's what all jiu-jitsu guys do.
Basically. you
Give
know.
it some
We just do it for the gram.
weird name and, you
Yeah.
know. I did see a question pop up on your thing a second ago about, I don't remember how it was phrased, but I think it was escaping or defending 10th Planet lockdown position.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you have a video out there about that somewhere.
Man, I don't know if I do. Like, I've got a half guard passing video, but I don't know if I talk about lockdown in it specifically. Here's the thing about passing lockdown. If they have a crappy lockdown, it's really easy. I mean, that sounds like, well, yeah, any crappy position's easy to pass. But no, even a crappy lockdown, if you get somebody who isn't familiar with it, can still be a powerful position because it's a strong entanglement on the leg, you know? So, but there really are a couple really easy ways to unhook the lockdown for somebody who doesn't play a very active lockdown game. So, yeah, I probably do have something. Well, maybe we can demonstrate that in a minute. We should maybe take like a couple of technique videos or something, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe address a couple of technical things. So, yeah, we can do that in a minute after we're done talking. As far as the training thing, we're very fortunate. I mean, you know, we still have access to training facilities that we don't have to like depend on somebody else to come and like open it up and have classes for us, but just because of the access that we have. I mean, Ryan owns, you know, his own center. It's like have a key to the place where I train. I don't own the place, but I can go there whenever I want to, and I have plenty of people that are going to take me up on training that, for legal purposes, will say they've already had the COVID-19 test, and they're fine, and we're all fine here. So, but yeah, and we clean and stuff. So,
yeah, I bought a ridiculous amount of like body wipes and gear wipes and all this stuff, and then we got shut down. I mean, the thing is, like, and I've said this in a couple of different forums lately, and I can only speak to the gyms and martial arts centers that I've kind of been around. Outside of maybe medical facilities or food prep facilities, nobody sanitizes and disinfects like we do, because things like staph and MRSA and ringworm and those kinds of things are like legit concerns always.
Yeah.
So we're always addressing and dealing with those kinds of things. I mean, I get it, you know, you don't know what everybody else is doing and that kind of thing, but it's frustrating, I think, on our end, because we know the amount of time and energy and effort and hell, money that we put into making sure that we have clean facility, clean gear. You know, we send out reminders about hygiene regularly to members. So that's kind of frustrating for me personally.
yeah.
Because it's obviously this virus is novel and new and whatever, but the idea of dealing with things being passed through surfaces or air or whatever is not a new thing for us.
Yeah, yeah. There's pretty close. There's not really much closer contact that a professional can have with a client outside of like prostitution. Like that's so our contact level is somewhere between massage therapist and prostitute. It's somewhere right in the air like that.
Jiu-Jitsu guys
It
are
is
weird.
Yeah, but I mean, say it's wrong. It's not wrong. There's a couple questions. What do you guys think about the sparring tournament fighting that I think are unique to karate, i.e. light, no contact point fighting, Kyokushin type, no head punching tournaments? Those are two very different things.
Yes.
Like, there's some karate rules that are really whack, like as far as like just like you can tap somebody on the head lightly and then raise your hands and yell and you get the point. I don't know how that works. Kyokushin's way different than that. Kyokushin is
Those dudes are tough.
yeah, that's a brutal style of fighting. And they can't punch to the head, but they can still kick to the head, and they can punch to the body, and they can wreck people in those tournaments. And so I think every tournament style, even with a deep level of rule set, has something to offer. It's just some have a little less to offer than others. You know, I mean, you're gonna have jiu-jitsu tournaments that are gonna have like an extensive amount of rules versus some that have a lot looser rules. But I think the biggest thing is for to like and appreciate and use it for what it has of value, rather than to just completely dismiss it on well, there's too many rules and I don't like to I don't train for rules, I train for the streets.
Yeah. All karate's not the same. Like, it's just not. I mean,
No.
I'll tell you a quick story. This is going back 8 years, maybe, something like that. I was teaching a law enforcement course with a guy named Richard Griot, French guy. He was a member, retired, of basically the French version of Navy SEALs. And I'd never met the guy before. I'd heard stories about him, never met him. And it was here at this center. We were in a little bit different configuration, but I was in the office and he came inside and he was kind of touring the place or whatever. I'm sitting in the office and I hear this sound, and I hear this like boom, boom, boom. I'm like, what the hell is that? I get up out of my office and I kind of turn the corner. We had a boxing ring, and boxing ring had big square tubing for the ring posts. I turn the corner and I see this dude, and Richard at the time was late 50s, early 60s probably, and he's shin kicking the ring posts like hard.
Like Tong Po from Kickboxer.
Yes, except it wasn't drywall. It was square steel tubing. I turned the corner, and again, like I said, I've never met him before. I turned the corner, I see this, and he's just like this, and I'm like, and I turn around and go back in the office because I'm like, man, this is gonna. Because I was teaching with him for 5 days. There's another story of that week, but I don't know that I should tell it publicly. But he was one of the scariest people I've ever been around in my life, and his background was Kyoshin karate. Like he'd done other things for sure, and he was a Krav Maga guy and whatever. But that dude was hard as nails, and so I ever since then I've been real cautious to just dismiss all karate or all anything really, other than Aikido.
Yeah.
Um,
It is. It's hard. Because the popularity, not popularity, but the ubiquity of what gets shown on social media a lot of the time is making fun. Even dismissing something like Sistema. Like Sistema gets like one of the most horrible, and it's easy to do. It's very easy to like pick out like really horrible things from Sistema and throw them up online. But there's good to be had out of most every kind of martial art that's stuck around for quite some time, for the most part, except for like George Dillman stuff. I mean, like
they're getting ready to make a comeback.
Oh yeah,
This 6 foot social distancing thing, man.
Yeah, people are going to be training a lot more no-touch knockouts. How much of a choice.
There's a renaissance coming for those guys.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and it's there's a big upside to social media, and then there's also a huge downside to social media. And the things that I think get proliferated and shared and posted and ton on social media a lot of times are either the best of or the worst of, there's not a lot of in between in terms of what you see out there. So like the good Sistema is not the things that you're going to get seen a lot. You're going to see the really overweight guys doing these
It's people touching their belly and flying
and
across
them,
the room from touching it. Yeah. Someone was asking about takedowns, favorite takedowns for competition. Man, I think my personal opinion, depending on what kind of competition style you're talking about, I'm imagining gi or no gi grappling competition, arm drags and collar drags. Like that, I like those personally a whole lot. If I had to look at more, those are very wrestling-based things, but if I had to look at more wrestling-based stuff, the single leg takedown is the highest percentage takedown in grappling competition as far as takedowns go, if you don't count pulling guard. So, yeah. Any favorite takedown things, Ryan?
Nah. I mean, I think, obviously drags and collar ties, like you said, head snaps, it's wrestlers with big, hard, heavy hands, man, snapping the head and that kind of stuff. Those things are just.
Yeah, Nicky Rodriguez has knocked out several dudes, like just off of snap downs. They just bouncing somebody's head off of the mat from about a 5 foot distance.
The first time Eric Paulson grabbed me, I thought I might be dead. And he just grabbed my head, like he wasn't doing anything, just. So yeah, low singles I dig a good bit. Obviously there's some big risks there too, but
yeah. Let's see, what else do we have? Take down. Karate question. Let's see.
Answer this, but
Oh my God.
Eli, does the hair product you use help with your top game? Like when you sweat into someone's eyes, can it blind them so you can armbar them?
It's the opposite. So here's the thing: the specially formulated hair product is actually one of the few known essential oil combinations that can actually cure COVID-19. We've done the research. The human trials are still going to take several months, but once that's out, then we'll mass produce it, and everybody can both have glamorous hair and be healthy while they train. So.
well, how can you beat that?
Yeah.
With a paddle.
Yeah.
All right, we'll blame Amber for that question.
Why all the wrestling when you can just shoot them in the face?
That's right.
Zombies.
That's why.
Yeah. Man, I feel like we've done that one a lot, but
Somebody's just trolling, though, like just playing, right?
I was
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was
Okay.
Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. You never know.
no, I mean there are people out there right now thinking it.
Yeah, for sure. Imagine if somebody doesn't get sarcasm. They're going to have a hard time on this channel and on the Fit to Fight page. Man, there was something back here. It was in all caps. That's why
They're yelling at us.
yeah, I guess. No, I think it was just locked. What else, guys? What else?
What's all this stuff you're scrolling through? Is this just like praise for you? or-
Yeah, basically.
No, because he would be reading that.
Yeah. Openings. I love BJJ, the best resistance. Oh, we talked about resistance training, I think. Did we?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you said
Conditioning
resistance training.
stuff.
I don't really know what you said after that.
I don't remember either. We may have just glossed over that completely. Cat slicer for only brown belts tilted me hardcore. Oh, IBJJF. What? Do you think that the leg lock rules in IBJJF will ever become more lax? No, I don't. Maybe in Nogi, maybe in Nogi world, like IBJJF rules, they might start to allow a little more lax game because we've seen those kind of adapt over the years. And the IBJJF is constantly refining different rule sets and things like that. But you're never, I don't see it ever being a thing where you're going to be able to reap the knee wearing a gi for them.
Is Hard Ready still happening? The one with Craig Douglas. Assuming that we're not all zombies by then, and we're all still around. Hard Ready is definitely in. Craig Douglas is definitely down. That's gonna be. I mean, I see this every year, and at some point maybe it sounds like marketing, but it's not. Every year is better than the year before. This year is just
This
crazy
one, yeah.
good. Like
This one, the guest list was like set like before the last Hard Ready even happened, I think.
Yeah.
And whenever Ryan showed it to me, I was like, oh, damn, like that's a serious lineup right
Yeah.
there. That's it's gonna be really good. You guys already have information about that on the website? Like they
Yeah.
can see like all the
Hardready.com.
instructions.
Yep, they can just go to hardready.com.
Yeah.
I mean, just Craig Douglas alone. Like,
Yeah.
Eli and I did his course last year, one of his courses last year, and actually talked about it recently. That I think a lot of the stuff that a lot of us do when it comes to kind of clinch work and grappling-based environments or weapons-based environments with grappling, Craig's been doing for a long time in some form or fashion, and he's really refined it to just a super high level. The thing that I took away from Craig's course, I took a lot away, don't get me wrong, but the thing that I took away from it a lot was his managing unknown contacts kind of portion of it, where his ability to assess a situation, read a person, and navigate waters like verbally and with posturing and things was just next level. I thought I was pretty good at it. Like everything, there's levels to this shit. He is 17 levels above where I am with that. And again, I thought I was pretty good at it.
What did he say? He said something along the lines of, you need to be like a purple belt level in jiu-jitsu, as far as like your range skills need to be at like whatever level he said, and then you need to have like the conversational chops of a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
That makes a pretty safe person right there in most all contexts, be able to navigate a lot of different contexts.
Yeah, he was, to me, he was mesmerizing there. Like his ability to just riff and change directions, and no matter what somebody would say or what the scenario was, and just like a stand-up, just being able to roll with it. And that was, man, and that's what he's doing at Hard Ready. That's what I asked him to do, was his managing unknown contacts portion, because I think it's invaluable, and I think it's overlooked, and I think because, again, it doesn't get YouTube views. It doesn't get...
it is a hard thing to put into video. Like you can't put that on video. It doesn't translate. Even if you had like the best actor in the world portraying it on video, it still wouldn't like come across. But live and in person and in improvisational context, like it's incredible to witness. So yeah, that's gonna be a great one. We did have a question or two about is Full Tilt still happening in Scranton?
No.
That was a painful one.
I've had 4 events canceled in the past week and a half. Phoenix, Houston, Scranton.
Yeah, let's say rescheduled.
Yeah,
instead of
rescheduled.
canceled, yeah.
So here's the thing, like, we would like to announce a date this week. My issue is I don't want to announce a date and then have to change it again. So for our side, we're kind of giving it another week just to see how things are going to evolve or devolve before we put out another date. Scranton will happen. It's going to happen. It's an awesome facility. I taught there last year. It's a huge place and a lot of really skilled people there. So I was really looking forward to it. So it's going to happen. It's just we don't know when yet. Unless things just get gravely worse in the next week or so, we'll set a new date and get that posted. It sucks. I don't like canceling anything. Just like I don't like that we're not open. We're not open, you know, because we don't really have much choice. But yeah, it'll happen. I just don't know when.
Yeah, I can't stand canceling things either. Like I'm the same way. If I find out for some reason somebody contacts me a week before something's about to happen and there's like, we're expecting 3 people to show up, and I'll be like, well, I'm gonna still be there and do it for those 3 people. But yeah, I mean, it has to be at the to the biggest benefit of the person organizing the event, first of all, and to make sure that things are safe. I mean, right now, that's the biggest concern is the perception of safety, if not actual safety, is the biggest concern. So yeah, rescheduling events is a really painful thing to have to do right now. The worst thing is like the ones that haven't rescheduled that we don't know. We're just having to play the waiting game and to have to see. So that's a little unnerving, but yeah.
All right, guys, we're hitting at about 90 minutes now. So if you got anything else, fire away, because I've kind of reached my limit of talking this week.
Let's see. You think it's a weakness in self-defense situation to have things like pulling guard and berimbolo in your muscle memory? Whew. It depends on how deep in your muscle memory it is. If that's, I think you're going to default back to your level of proficiency in a physical confrontation, like regardless of, you know, when you get to a position and you get to an energy and your body recognizes that energy, then you're going to start going on a bit like autopilot. So, yeah, but your level of training, if it's varied and you're training not just for like self-defense, but also for sport and other different modalities of fighting and everything else, your part of your training is to contextualize it. You know, we've talked about on some different level about 12 different times during this whole talk about training context, and that really is just about everything. I mean, it's your skill set is going to have to be based on that contextual training. If all you have in a certain situation is pulling guard and berimbolo, then you know you're probably going to try that at inappropriate times, possibly if it's a self-defense situation. But that doesn't inherently mean that you should eliminate that from, like, you're going to accidentally do that. You know, you're not going to accidentally berimbolo somebody. Like that's a skill. That's a very technical thing to do. So I don't think it's like the biggest thing to worry about. You know, you can test it out this way. You can train berimbolo and be able to pull it off in competition at high level and everything, and then bring in an unskilled person off the street that has like no grappling experience, and they're doing some weird unorthodox crap and they've got a funky body style, and then try to berimbolo that person and see how it goes for you. So yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Well, that's a long one. Yeah, thank you guys. Everybody in here, we appreciate you guys like tuning in and everything. Yeah, We did have a couple technical questions, just like real quick. I know one particular, when you take like 2 or 3 quick technical things. Can we do that?
Yeah.
All right. Because you're gonna look like a dick if you say no right now. I kind of put you on the spot.
Like I've ever been concerned about that.
Let me show something that we had a question about. Somebody said something about lockdown from half guard, about dealing with that. And so let's think the
Yeah,
best
we're
way
gonna have to
do
get some people
Right.
involved in doing things with
For sure.
cameras and.
steal Riley's legs and throw me in lockdown or something. Oh, okay. I've been sitting too long. All right. So, yeah. I just threw everything off completely. So lockdown is type of half guard where I've been passing or something. I wind up in this kind of position this way, and Riley throws me in lockdown. And so it looks something like, not this, but like this one's underneath, this one is looping figure 4 underneath that one. Like here, yeah. So it can be bad because if he stretches his leg, that's actually where the tension comes from. And so like my hip is isolated. So that's the danger of lockdowns. He's isolating my hip, and he can make some really like funky sweeps and even set up some submissions and stuff off of this. Here is if the person has a very novice lockdown, the easiest way to kill it. I'm gonna get head and arm control this way here. And if he's stretching a whole lot, the cool thing about this is that I can pick both his legs up with mine because he's holding on so tight. Then I put mine underneath and hook his heel versus my heel, and then he can't follow when I do that. So now his legs are kind of stuck here, and then I cut back, and now he can't re-lock down on that. So again, that's if somebody's really just like using that lockdown to squeeze and try to pull the leg off and not really play a really technical following kind of lockdown game. But that's one thing. What was something else we had a question about from a technical standpoint? You guys remember anything? I don't remember.
The only thing I remember is the takedown question.
Like the favorite takedown. And what did we say? Arm drags and snap downs and collar drags.
Yep.
Love seeing
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to dim all that. So there was something about sacrifice. Okay, quick arm drag takedown. Let's go this side here, my good side. So from here, if I'm gonna look for an arm drag like this, if I catch his arm hanging out, I'm gonna grab something like this. It can go different ways. It can go overhand or underhand. Depending on what the rule set is, we're just doing submission grappling and I wanna get him taken down. What I wanna look to do is I'm gonna grab here and here. I'm gonna push his hand down. I'm gonna drag behind his tricep or shoulder. I'm gonna step and slip on the way through and sit down. So I'm gonna go here, that way. And so now I'm back here kind of like on his leg, on a single maybe. If he turns and tries to replace guard or anything like that, then it's gonna be easy for me to start to look to pass around here possibly. But I like it because there's a large margin of error on arm drags. So if you have like several different options, then you can kind of screw it up a little bit, and it's not the worst thing in the world. So
How to stop someone from passing half guard using a switch hip?
a switch hip. Somebody for passing half guard using a switch hip. I'm not sure what you're talking about with a switch hip. People use a lot of different terms for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
If he's wanting to pass my half guard, the worst kind of half guard I have to deal with is when the guy is big and heavy like Riley on top of me and smashing me. So if he's got head and arm control like this right here, this is one of the worst half guards to have to deal with. So a way that I like to deal with this from this one is I want to try to get his leg back here. And again, you can use lockdown for this kind of situation, but I want to like step here on his leg, right? So you see how I'm stepping over here on his heel, like that? So just with my foot on his heel. This arm here, the bad thing about this is I can't frame with this arm because he's got this tight squeeze over here like this, right? So I want to hip out. I'm going to push my bicep against his face. I want to hip out to the side a little bit, and I want to do it enough to where I can get my butterfly hook inside his leg like this, okay? So I've got this, we call it butter half because it's half butterfly guard and half guard. I want to reach over to his armpit or lat this way, and I want to pull his head toward the floor. The response I'm going to get when I pull his head toward the floor is he's going to try to resist and push back this way over here, that way, right? So now I'm going to start to sweep over this direction. He probably won't let me, he'll probably have to, but he has to post out on this side over here if he doesn't want to let me. Right, so now I can scoop up his leg, And now I can start to sweep. So the idea on any kind of sweeping kind of pattern like that, and this one in particular, is like going this way, this way, this way, this way. I feed him the energy, and then he resists a certain way, so I turn it around. He resists that way, and we go back and forth until I find one way that I'm like a step or two ahead of him, and then I can make the move work. That's how a lot of moves work. All right, any other technical questions?
Well, maybe a clarification. He says like to twister half guard.
Twister, half guard. Okay. Let's switch it, twister, half guard. And asking about pass prevention?
Yeah.
Off of
Stop someone from passing, yeah.
stop someone from passing using, man, I'm still a little confused. Like twister half guard is basically, or twister side control is like if I was here, is basically reverse case of katami, the reverse scarf hold. This is twister side control, because what I'm looking for here is to start to hook his leg and roll and take his back this way. But I don't know how far back exactly to talk about like preventing the pass off of that. Yeah, sorry.
This is why you just say it depends.
Yeah, I know, man. I've got to really start to adopt that phrasing.
I'll get you a paddle made.
Yeah. I've got to make it my own. Context dictates. How about that? All right. Any other technical things? No? Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and listening this whole time and asking questions and participating. Ryan Hoover over there. So we're over at Fit to Fight in Gastonia, North Carolina today. And here comes Iggy, the star of the show. There she
goes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. If you're one of our members, make sure that you're checking email. Things should have gone out about how to join us for Zoom online. Iggy is now eating Amber's apple. Online classes will start tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe out there. People are nuts, more nuts than normal. Remember, people are on edge right now, so be smart, be safe. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
She like
I don't know.
all
Stop it.
gone.